Imagine it's the winter of 2025. You're standing in your kitchen staring at a smart meter that's ticking up faster than a taxi meter in rush hour traffic. You're terrified to turn on the heating, even though you can see your breath in the air. This isn't a dystopian movie, this is reality for millions of people right now. But the question is, where are you standing? Are you in a damp Victorian terrace in Birmingham or a drafty apartment in Berlin? Because here's the kicker. In the first half of 2025, electricity prices in the UK surged by a staggering 40% compared to the year before. Meanwhile, Germany, the so-called economic engine of Europe, just posted 0% growth. Flatline, dead pulse. We're watching a heavyweight fight between two economic giants, but instead of throwing punches, they're both just kind of stumbling around the ring, trying not to pass out. The media loves to pick a side. Broken Britain versus the stagnant Eurozone. But today, we're cutting through the noise. We are looking at the cold, hard data from late 2024 and 2025 to answer the one question nobody wants to ask. Who is actually doing worse? Buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy ride. 1. The cost of living hangover. Let's start with the thing that hits you every single time you tap your card. The cost of just existing. If you're in the UK, you might feel like you've been living in a financial fever dream since 2022, and you're not wrong. By late 2025, UK inflation was hovering around 3.6%, creeping back up just when everyone thought the nightmare was over. That's higher than the Eurozone average of about 2.3%. But numbers on a screen don't tell the full story. Let's zoom in. Imagine you're Sarah, a junior graphic designer living in Manchester. In 2021, your disposable income felt decent. You could go out for drinks, maybe save a bit. Fast forward to today. Your rent is up, your council tax is up, and thanks to what economists are politely calling sticky inflation in the service sector, a pint of beer costs what a decent bottle of wine used to. The UK's core inflation, that's the price of everything except food and energy, has been incredibly stubborn. It's like that guest at a party who just won't leave, even after you've turned on the lights and started vacuuming. Now, let's hop across the channel. Meet Hans in Hamburg. On paper, Hans is doing better. Eurozone inflation is lower, but Hans has a different problem. While his bread might not be rising in price as fast as Sarah's, his purchasing power is getting hammered by something else entirely: wage stagnation. See, the UK actually saw some decent wage growth in 2024 and 2025, around 5 to 6% in some sectors. Sarah has more pounds in her pocket, they're just worth less. Hans, however, is stuck in an economy that is terrified of a wage price spiral, so his pay packet has barely budged while his rent has skyrocketed. And here's the really dark part. In the UK, the cost of living crisis has morphed into a cost of debt crisis. With interest rates staying higher for longer to fight that sticky inflation, anyone with a mortgage coming up for renewal is staring down the barrel of a monthly payment increasing by 300, 400 or even 500. In Europe, the pain is distributed differently. In countries like Italy and Greece, the government often subsidises more of the daily costs, but the taxes to pay for it are crippling the younger generation. It's a pick-your-poison scenario. Would you rather have expensive groceries and a slightly higher salary, UK, or cheaper groceries and a salary that hasn't moved since 2019, parts of the EU? The verdict on living costs. The UK takes the L here. The combination of higher inflation and the mortgage time bomb makes the day-to-day anxiety in Britain feel sharper and more immediate than the slow burn of the Eurozone. 2. The Industrial Meltdown, Germany versus UK. If the cost of living is a headache, this next part is a heart attack. We need to talk about making stuff. Tangible things. Cars, steel, machinery. For decades, the deal was simple. The UK does finance and services, moving money around, and Germany does manufacturing, making actual things. Well, in 2025, that deal is broken. Germany is currently in what economists call a structural slump, but what I call a slow-motion car crash. In Q3 of 2025, Germany posted 0% GDP growth. Zero. Zilch. The mighty German industrial machine is rusting. Why? Because they bet the farm on two things: cheap Russian gas and endless Chinese demand for BMWs. Both of those bets failed. Let's look at a specific case study: the chemical giant BASF. They are literally scaling down operations in Germany. They're home for over a century to build plants in China. When your biggest companies are packing up and leaving because energy is too expensive and red tape is too thick, you don't just have a recession, you have an existential crisis. Now, look at the UK. You'd think with Brexit, British manufacturing would be dead in the water, and to be fair, it's not exactly partying. UK manufacturing output fell by 1.0% in late 2025. But here's the twist. The UK economy grew by 0.1% in Q3 2025. It's pathetic growth. Sure, anemic is the word the IMF uses, but it's positive. Why? Because the UK isn't as reliant on making stuff. The British economy is powered by services, lawyers, consultants, tech bros, and creative industries. And that sector has been surprisingly resilient. While German factory workers are being put on Kurzarbeit, short-time work schemes, British service exports are actually hitting record highs. But don't break out the champagne yet, Britain. There's a dark side to this too. Because the UK has let its industrial base rot, it has zero resilience. If a global supply chain snaps, Germany can at least try to build what it needs. The UK, it just has to wait and pay whatever price the market demands. Imagine you're a steelworker in Port Talbot. You're watching the blast furnaces go cold, replaced by electric arc furnaces that need fewer workers. You're being told this is modernisation, but it feels a lot like abandonment. Meanwhile, your German counterpart in the Ruhr Valley is still employed, but he's standing in a factory that's losing money every single hour it operates. The verdict on industry, the EU, specifically Germany, is actually doing worse here. The collapse of the German manufacturing model is a massive structural threat to the entire Eurozone. The UK's decline in manufacturing is old news. Germany's decline is a fresh, gaping wound that nobody knows how to stitch up. So, we have one guy who can't pay his heating bill, UK, and another guy whose job is disappearing because his factory is obsolete, Germany. But if you think that's depressing, wait until we talk about where they're supposed to sleep. 3. The housing nightmare. Chronic pain versus acute failure. If you think paying for energy is bad, let's talk about having a roof to keep the heat in. This is where the battle gets ugly. Really ugly. In the UK, the housing market is essentially a cult. You either own a home and pray prices go up forever, or you don't, and you're trapped in a rental market that feels like the Hunger Games. By late 2025, the average rent in London and Manchester didn't just rise, it ascended to a higher plane of existence. We're seeing bidding wars for mouldy one-bedroom flats where prospective tenants are offering 6 months' rent up front just to get a viewing. But here's the twist. While the UK has a chronic shortage of homes, we simply haven't built enough for 30 years. Parts of the EU are facing a total construction collapse. Look at Germany. In 2024 and 2025, residential construction permits plummeted by nearly 26%. Major developers like Vonovia essentially went on strike, cancelling projects because high interest rates and material costs made building impossible. You're walking past building sites in Berlin that have turned into ghost towns. The cranes are there, but nobody is operating them. And then there's Dublin. Oh, Dublin. If you think London is bad, try finding a flat in Ireland. By late 2025, the situation there had gone from crisis to humanitarian disaster, with tech workers on 6-figure salaries couch surfing or living in vans because there is literally zero stock. So, who has it worse? In the UK, the pain is high prices and poor quality, damp, drafty housing stock. But in key EU hubs like Dublin, Amsterdam and Berlin, the market is structurally broken. Rent controls in places like Berlin were meant to help, but in 2025, they've just created a black market. You want an apartment? Sure, the rent is capped, but you have to buy the previous tenant's kitchen furniture for $20,000 cash. The verdict on housing? It's a tie, but a miserable one. The UK is suffering from a 30-year failure to build. The EU is suffering from a sudden, violent capital strike that has frozen new supply. If you're a renter, you lose in both places. 4. The demographic time bomb, the silent killer. Now let's zoom out. Forget the rent for a second. Let's talk about who is actually going to live in these countries in 20 years. This is where the UK pulls a surprise card from its sleeve. By late 2025, a strange statistic hit the headlines. Italy briefly overtook the UK in GDP per capita. The Italian media cheered. But wait, how did they do it? Did the Italian economy boom? No, their population shrank. If you have the same amount of money but fewer people to share it with, technically, everyone looks richer. But that is the math of a graveyard. Southern Europe is facing a demographic apocalypse. Italy's fertility rate hit an all-time low of 1.13 in 2025. They are losing the equivalent of a city the size of Bologna every few years. Germany isn't far behind. They need 400,000 skilled immigrants every single year just to keep their factories running, and they aren't getting them. Now look at the UK. It's crowded. The trains are packed. The waiting lists are long. Why? Because the population is growing. Immigration numbers in the UK have remained historically high, even post-Brexit. While that causes massive friction, social tension, strain on the NHS, housing pressure, economically speaking, it's a pulse. A growing population consumes, works, and pays taxes. A shrinking population just retires and needs a pension. In 2025, Spain had a youth unemployment rate of nearly 25%. In the UK, it was around 15%. That is a massive difference. If you're 22 years old, your chance of getting any job is significantly higher in Birmingham than in Barcelona. The verdict on demographics, the EU, specifically the South and Germany, is doing worse, much worse. The UK has growing pains, overcrowding and infrastructure strain. The EU has dying pains, an ageing workforce that can't support the retirees. Speaking of growing pains, if you want to grow your knowledge on how the global economy is trying to bankrupt you, hit that subscribe button. We're tracking the collapse so you don't have to. And let me know in the comments, would you rather have the UK's job market with UK rent prices, or an Italian village house for one with no job prospects? I'm genuinely curious. 5. The sick man, Olympics, GDP and growth. Okay, let's look at the scoreboard, the holy grail of economics, GDP. For most of 2023 and 2024, the UK was the laughingstock. The worst performing economy in the G7, screamed the headlines. But in late 2025, the tables have turned. The IMF upgraded the UK's growth forecast to around 1.5%. Not great, not terrible, just meh. Germany? They are forecasted to have effectively zero growth. The German economy has been stagnant since before the pandemic. They are the anchor dragging the entire Eurozone down. Why the switch? Because the UK economy is flexible. It's chaotic, yes. It has zero long-term plan, yes. But it adapts. When energy prices spiked, the UK service sector pivoted. The Eurozone, bound by the rigid rules of the single market and the slow bureaucracy of Brussels, can't pivot as fast. Germany spent 20 years optimizing its economy for a world that no longer exists, a world of cheap Russian gas and friendly Chinese trade. Now that world is gone, they are stuck. The verdict on growth. The UK wins this round, barely. It's the difference between a guy limping with a sprained ankle, UK, and a guy in a full body cast, Germany. One is moving slowly, the other isn't moving at all. But don't get patriotic yet, Britain. Because while the economy is growing, the public services are collapsing, and that brings us to the final and perhaps most painful comparison. Coming up, the NHS versus European healthcare and the brain drain reality check. 6. The body breakdown, healthcare and services. If the economy is the engine, the healthcare system is the oil. And right now, both engines are grinding metal on metal, but the sound they make is very different. Let's start with the national religion of the United Kingdom, the NHS. By late 2025, the NHS isn't just struggling, it has fundamentally changed. We are seeing a two-tier system emerging in real time. If you have money in the UK, you go private. You have to. Because the alternative is playing Russian roulette with waiting lists. Imagine you're Dave in Leeds. Dave needs a hip replacement. In 2025, the waiting list for routine hospital treatment in England is still hovering near the 7.5 million mark. Dave isn't in critical danger, so he waits, and waits. He can't work properly because of the pain, so he drops out of the labour market, which hurts the economy even more. It's a doom loop. The UK model is, it's free, but you can't have it. Now let's fly to Berlin or Paris. The European model, generally based on social insurance, is often held up as the gold standard. You pay a percentage of your salary and you get access. In Germany, if you need a specialist, you can usually see one much faster than in the UK. But in 2025, the bill for that access has arrived. Germany's health insurance contributions hit a record high this year. An aging population means fewer workers are paying for more sick retirees. If you're a freelancer or a high earner in Germany, your monthly health insurance premium is now eye-watering. We're talking hundreds of euros a month, mandatory. And in France, the system is buckling under a shortage of doctors in rural areas, what they call medical deserts. You might have great insurance, but if the nearest GP is 50 km away and retiring next week, good luck. The verdict on healthcare. The UK is doing worse, much worse. While European costs are rising, the systems function. If you break your leg in Munich, you get it fixed. If you break your leg in Manchester, you might spend 12 hours in a corridor on a trolley. The psychological toll of knowing the safety net has holes in it is a massive drag on the British national psyche. The UK has the worst of both worlds, high taxes and failing services. 7. The Stability Index, apathy versus anger. You can tell a lot about a country by how its people express their rage. In the UK, the mood in late 2025 is exhausted. After the political rollercoaster of the early 2020s, Boris, Liz Truss, remember the lettuce, Rishi, and then the Labour government taking over with a mandate to fix things. The reality has set in. There is no magic money tree. The UK public is suffering from crisis fatigue. Taxes are at a post-war high to plug the fiscal black hole, but services aren't improving, see point 6. The result isn't revolution, it's cynicism. People have checked out. They don't trust any politician to fix it. It's a low-energy depression, like a national hangover that won't clear. Now look at the EU. The vibe is not depressive, it's explosive. France and Germany are grappling with a surge in hard-right populism that makes UK politics look like a polite tea party. In Germany, the AfD, Alternative for Germany, has been polling dangerously high, winning state elections and shattering the political consensus. The firewall that kept the far right out of power is crumbling. Why? Because of immigration, energy costs, and the feeling that the industrial heartland is dying. In France, the political centre has hollowed out. Every election feels like a standoff between the establishment and the radicals. And let's not forget the farmers. Remember the tractors blocking Brussels? That wasn't a one-off. In 2025, the tension between green policies, net zero, and the people who actually grow the food has reached a boiling point across the continent. The verdict on stability. The EU is doing worse. The UK is stable, but miserable. The political system is intact. Nobody is storming Downing Street. But in the EU, the very fabric of the political union is being stretched. The rise of anti-EU parties in major member states threatens the existence of the project in a way that UK cynicism doesn't. Britain has already left the club. The EU is fighting to stop the club from burning down. 8. The Great Escape. The brain drain reality. This is the point where we stop comparing the two cripples and look at the athlete running past them both. If you are a talented 25-year-old software engineer, data scientist or doctor, the UK versus EU debate is irrelevant to you. Why? Because you're looking at a job offer from the USA. In 2025, the wealth gap between Europe, including the UK and America, has become a canyon. The average salary for a senior dev in London might be 80k. In Berlin, maybe 75k. In Austin, Texas, it's 180k. Plus stock options, plus sunshine. Both the UK and the EU are suffering from a massive brain drain. The brightest minds are looking at the taxes, the housing costs and the stagnation, and they are buying a one-way ticket to New York, Dubai or Singapore. However, the UK has a slight advantage here, or rather, a disadvantage that looks like an advantage. The UK has a global talent visa scheme that is remarkably open. While British grads are leaving, the UK is still attracting talent from India, Nigeria and Hong Kong who view the UK as a stepping stone. The EU, hampered by language barriers and rigid labour laws, struggles to attract top-tier non-European talent at the same scale. If you don't speak German, moving to Frankfurt is hard. If you don't speak French, Paris is a nightmare. Everyone speaks English. The verdict on brain drain. It's a tie. Both are losing their best people to the US. Europe is becoming a museum. Beautiful to look at, great for a holiday, but not where the future is being built. Let's put some real numbers on this because feelings don't pay the bills. Imagine you're a mid-level software engineer. You're good at what you do. You know Python, you know React, you dream in code. In London, you're taking home about $60,000, $76,000. Not bad, right? Until you pay $2,500 a month for a 2-bedroom flat that smells like damp towels. In Berlin, you're looking at around $65,000, $69,000. Rent is cheaper, sure, but your taxes are so high that you start wondering if the government is charging you for breathing the air. Now let's look at Austin, Texas. Same job, same skills. Your salary? $140,000. That is nearly double. And here's the kicker. You can rent a house, an actual house with a garden and a pool, for less than that London flat. In 2025, an engineer in Austin is statistically 104% better off financially than their counterpart in Berlin. That isn't a gap. That is a different species of lifestyle. And it's not just tech bros. Let's talk about doctors. A junior doctor in the UK, someone literally saving lives, starts on about $32,000. That is barely enough to rent a 1-bed flat in Zone 3. In the US, residents start on $60,000 or plus, and once they qualify, they are earning $250,000 minimum. The verdict on brain drain. The UK and EU are holding hands and jumping off a cliff together. They are becoming incubation labs for the American economy, training brilliant people for free only to watch them board a flight to JFK the moment they get their degree. 9. The grand verdict. Who is actually doing worse? So here we are. We've looked at the cost of living, the factories, the houses and the hospitals. Who is the true sick man of Europe? If you value stability and safety, the UK is doing worse. The housing market is more broken, the healthcare system is in a more critical state of collapse, and the cost of existing is sharper. The UK feels like a country held together by duct tape and politeness. But if you look at the structural future, the EU, specifically Germany, is in deeper trouble. The UK is messy, but it's pivoting. It has a growing population, a flexible service economy, and it's slowly weaning itself off the old world industries. Germany is staring down the barrel of a demographic collapse and an industrial death spiral that they have no plan to fix. They built a Ferrari engine for a world that now wants electric scooters. The winner of the losing game. Right now, in 2025, the UK feels worse to live in day to day. The anxiety is higher, but the EU has a bleaker long-term prognosis. It's the difference between a panic attack, UK, and a slow-growing tumour, EU. But hey, that's just the data. Reality is what you see when you walk out your front door. I want to hear from you. Are you a Brit who moved to Berlin and regrets it? Are you a German who moved to London and can't believe the price of a train ticket? Or are you watching this from Texas, laughing at all of us while you swim in your pool of money? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to survive the economic apocalypse, you know what to do. Like this video so the algorithm feeds you, and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming video on why the US economy is a bubble waiting to burst. Yeah, we're coming for you guys next. Thanks for watching. Good luck out there. You're gonna need it.